One of our oldest persons, and boy is he old. A man who needs no introduction, a printer from Philadelphia. I just happened to stumble into him while partaking of one in a local pub, and Ben was there, and by Jove, we got him here. Ben Franklin.
You had an actor and comedian in the 40s and the 50s who advised never follow dogs or small children. That was W.C. Fields. Well, I have no choice in the matter, but I thank you that you do not have a dog act like the Australian sheepdog that was on America's Got Talent 2 days ago. The mere fact that I've been dead for 219 years does not mean I don't pay attention to what is happening with this nation. My name is Ben Franklin. I lie still in Philadelphia. In my time, I did these things. Captured lightning with a kite. Created a very successful almanac. Constructed a post office that actually worked. We could get a letter from Philadelphia to New York in 2 days. I understand they're still working on that now. I signed the Declaration of Independence. I coached the treaty with France that brought the armies of Lafayette and the fleet of de Grasse that gave us victory in the Revolution. I negotiated the treaty with England that ended that war, but most of all, I helped persuade 39 people in Philadelphia to sign a document that gave you a republic if you can keep it. We were students of history, and we knew that there had been less than 20 republics in the history of the human race when we sat down in Philadelphia to try to write a governing document. We also knew that we had failed miserably once. One of the speakers referred to the Articles of Confederation, and they were a miserable failure. And quite frankly, from my own experience, the only way you really learn is by failing several times first. So we wrote that document. And I got to live long enough to see the Bill of Rights added to it. Now, I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of quotes, but I'm going to give you 2 quotes from the Gospel according to John, James, and Alexander. That is, of course, John Jay, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton, who wrote the Federalist Papers, which I recommend to you very, very highly. In the Federalist 58, Hamilton talked about the Electoral College, and he said, talents for low intrigue and the little arts of popularity can give someone first honors in a single state, but the Electoral College would make sure that no such ruffians would become President of the United States. Well, that one didn't work out too well. But there's a great deal to be learned because most of the time what is in the Federalists is correct. And Hamilton again, but I forget the number, when you're over 300 years old, you're allowed to forget a few things. He said, when all the powers of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial are gathered into one set of hands, regardless of how it happens or when it happens, that is the very definition of tyranny. That is the very definition of tyranny. And is that not what is happening in the United States today? Congress almost passed today, and apparently it was touch and go, a bill that started the day at 1,091 pages. 300 more pages were added at 4 o'clock in the morning. Hello? They can't read that. They don't read that. A former congressman wrote a book that said, its title, What Makes You Think We Read the Bills? Well, now I put this question to you. Which is worse, or are they equal? Taxation without representation or taxation with representatives who don't read the bills? Now, I don't see a distinction. I frankly do not. And I want to thank you all for something. I've been to several tea parties and other meetings of this type, and up until now, the main fight and the main speeches have been about taxes. But there's a deeper issue. Now, first of all, in the first third of a year, 1/3 of a year of the new president's term, we have gone into debt at a level that there's no chance that this generation can pay. We're not just talking about taxes for you and me. We're talking about taxes for our children, and given the way things are going, our grandchildren will still be trying to pay it off. That is the destruction of the United States by economic means. And Lincoln suggested that if we ever fall, we will fall internally, not to outside force. These are constitutional violations. We are supposed to have a separation of powers, that Congress writes the laws, the president executes them, and the Supreme Court declares what they are, but not rewriting them. Well, we've lost the Senate. More than a majority believe they can do whatever they please. We've lost the House the same way. We've lost the presidency the same way, and we're one justice away from losing the Supreme Court. And if and when that happens, that's game, set, and match. You are the 12th generation since we met in Philadelphia to write a Constitution. Each generation is responsible for defending the Constitution in your time, because it does not defend itself. It does not carry itself out. If it does not have citizens who understand it, who believe it, who insist on judges who will read it and enforce it, these are not complicated concerns. I've read about rocket sciences. I know what they are. And this is not rocket science. It's very straightforward. Read the language, understand the language, which all of you, I'll bet, have done, and then judges and presidents and senators and representatives are all obligated to obey it. George Washington, in his farewell address to the American people, the greatest man I've ever met or ever read about, said the Constitution is sacredly obligatory upon all until and unless it's changed by the authentic act of the whole people. Well, now that's rather complex language. We don't speak that way today. However, its meaning is quite clear. It's Article 5 of the Constitution, that to amend the Constitution, it takes a 2/3 vote of Congress and a 3/4 vote of the states. No governor is involved, no president is involved, no justice of the Supreme Court is involved. It is in your hands, which is where it belongs. And anyone who attempts to change the Constitution without following that route is attacking two things. One, the Constitution, and second, your right to own the Constitution. It is yours. It used to be mine, it is yours. Thomas Jefferson, 8 years after I died, put it most simply in the Kentucky Resolutions. He said, "Put not your faith in man, but bind him down to the chains of the Constitution." We gave you a republic. You are now in a testing time to see if you can keep it.
All right, thank you, Ben. At this time, I'd like to bring up to the stage Mr. Bill Fuchs, local business.